In the midnight glow where the stars align, we lose ourselves in the rhythm divine. Underneath the sky painted with dreams, we're chasing the echoes of silent screams. Caught in the spell of the cosmic night, where fantasies
The
float
revolution
in the
that went
pale
south.
moonlight. We'll let go.
In the sunny, chaotic nation of Buenatopia, a small but passionate group of human rights activists, affectionately known as the Misfits, had finally had enough. For years, they had watched as President Manuel Viciosa's government bled the country dry with corruption, leaving the people impoverished and the nation's resources squandered. It was time for a change, and the Misfits, armed with nothing but their conviction, a few witty protest signs, and an alarming amount of herbal tea were determined to make it happen. The Misfits were an eclectic bunch. There was Mariana, a fiery lawyer who spoke fluent legalese and dressed as if she were ready for a courtroom battle at any moment. Beside her was Carlos, a former poet-turned-activist who had traded his pen for a megaphone but still recited rhymes to rile up the crowds. Then there was Luisa, a tech wizard who could hack into any system but couldn't find her way out of a paper bag. Lastly, Javier, the idealistic history professor who believed in the power of peaceful protest, even if his idea of peaceful sometimes bordered on the absurd. The plan was simple: a massive protest to demand the resignation of President Viciosa. They crafted catchy slogans like "Corruption is out of fashion" and "Viciosa, it's time to go, sir." The protest day arrived, and thousands of Buenatopians flooded the streets, waving banners, chanting slogans, and in one memorable instance, performing an interpretive dance symbolizing the country's descent into chaos. The atmosphere was electric, and for a moment, it seemed like real change was possible. Unbeknownst to the Misfits, however, a shadowy figure watched the events unfold from the balcony of a luxurious penthouse. El Capitan, the notorious leader of the Zumbado cartel, saw an opportunity in the chaos. The cartel had been growing restless under Viciosa's watchful eye. What better way to expand their influence than to take control of the very government that had been trying, albeit incompetently, to suppress them? As the protest gained momentum, El Capitan's men, disguised as concerned citizens, mingled with the crowd. They subtly shifted the focus of the chants from anti-corruption to vaguely pro-cartel messages like freedom and fun substances. The Misfits, caught up in the fervor, didn't notice the change. Soon the movement took on a life of its own. The Zumbado cartel's mercenaries, posing as liberators, stormed the presidential palace with surprising ease, thanks to some well-placed bribes. Viciosa, faced with a revolution he didn't quite understand, fled the country, leaving Buenatopia leaderless. The Misfits, stunned by their apparent success, celebrated in the streets, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. It didn't take long for El Capitan to reveal his true intentions. The very next day, he announced himself as the new leader of Buenatopia, promising a new era of prosperity and open-mindedness. His first decree was the legalization of all drugs, which he branded as freedom elixirs. To everyone's shock, his second decree was to make the consumption of these substances mandatory. For the good of the nation, he explained with a straight face, everyone must partake in these elixirs to ensure a harmonious and relaxed society. The new leader, El Capitan, eager to solidify his regime's position both domestically and internationally, made a bold diplomatic move. He announced a grand conference in Buenatopia, inviting representatives from the International Federation of Drug Cartels, IFDC, an infamous but influential global network of drug lords. The event was a spectacle, with elaborate ceremonies and luxurious accommodations, all funded by the booming freedom elixirs industry. During the conference, El Capitan delivered a rousing speech extolling the virtues of a unified global effort for the betterment of free trade and recreational liberties. The highlight of the event was the signing of the Pact of Mutual Protection and Cooperation, a defense agreement that pledged mutual support among member cartels. This agreement not only ensured that Buenatopia would receive protection from external threats, but also provided El Capitan with a powerful alliance against any internal dissent. The pact was celebrated with a lavish banquet, where delegates toasted to a new era of collaboration, further cementing Buenatopia's transformation into a hub of legalized narcotic trade under the guise of promoting universal relaxation. The misfits, horrified by the turn of events, realized they had unwittingly facilitated a drug cartel takeover. The streets, once filled with hopeful protesters, were now eerily quiet as citizens, under the watchful eyes of cartel enforcers, complied with the new laws. Recreational drug use became a civic duty, with the government distributing daily rations of relaxation powder and inspiration pills. Carlos tried to organize a counter-protest, but the crowds had lost their fire, too mellowed out by the mandatory freedom elixirs to care. Mariana attempted to challenge the legality of the new laws, but found herself defending a case where the entire judiciary was either bribed or blissfully high. Luisa hacked into the government servers, only to find that the entire digital infrastructure was now dedicated to the logistics of the drug distribution program. Javier, ever the idealist, penned a manifesto titled "Revolution Take Two," but it was largely ignored, as the populace preferred binge-watching reruns of The Cosby Show under the new regime's free TV program. As the months passed, the nation of Buenatopia became a surreal place where productivity plummeted and creativity soared in the oddest ways. Art galleries flourished with bizarre and abstract works, while the economy nosedived. The international community, baffled by the situation, placed sanctions on the country, which only made El Capitan's drug business more lucrative. The misfits, now regretting their part in the coup, became an underground resistance. They met in secret, plotting ways to restore some semblance of normalcy. Their plans, however, were consistently thwarted by a population that was too blissfully indifferent to care. In one particularly embarrassing incident, they tried to rally support by offering sober Sundays, only to be met with a collective groan and a national preference for mellow Mondays. In the end, the misfits learned a harsh lesson. Sometimes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. As they sat in their underground bunker, sipping herbal tea and lamenting their fate, they couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. They had set out to free their nation from corruption and ended up trapping it in a haze of forced relaxation. The story of Buenatopia became a cautionary tale about the unpredictable consequences of revolution and the dangers of mixing idealism with the realities of power. And so, the tale of Buenatopia became a legend, a humorous yet sobering reminder that even the best-laid plans can spiral out of control, especially when you're dealing with a misfit group of activists and a savvy drug cartel. As for the misfits, they kept fighting the good fight, hopeful that one day the people would wake up, literally and figuratively, and take back their country. Until then, they had plenty of time to perfect their interpretive dance routine for the next protest.